Okay, here we go. 30-day wrestling challenge from day 1 to day 30. Welcome to the KJ from OC podcast, the wrestling edition. Oh yes. We talk wrestling because wrestling is fun to talk about. It's fun to do with your friends in the pool as a bunch of adults. It's fun to do with women in the bed before intercourse. It's just fun to do wrestling. So the 30-day wrestling challenge is a bunch of different ideas, from heels to finishers to favorite high-flying wrestler, when you became a fan, how you became a fan. You know, there's so many stories to tell within all these different ideas for 30 days of wrestling. This whole 30-day of wrestling challenge, I think it's great. And I kind of want to go backwards and go from day 30 to day 1. But you know what? Fuck it. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and go backwards. Day 30 all the way down to day 1 as a countdown. You ready for this? Because we're going right now. A minute 20 in. We're starting right now. Day 30. Feelings on current state of wrestling. That's inclusive of WWE. That's inclusive of All Elite. That's had 2 shows. That's inclusive of Ring of Honor, Impact, New Japan. Am I forgetting anyone? Probably. PCW. Yeah, all these little independent stuff. I can't remember all of them, but the several I just mentioned are the big ones. Ring of Honor, WWE, AEW, New Japan, etc. Current state of wrestling, it's not what it used to be. That's very obvious, right? WWE viewership has gone down year after year after year, month after month. It just goes down and down and down. I belong to several online wrestling groups, and we talk about wrestling from long time ago to today. I'm in like a Jim Crockett group that only talks about wrestling up to 88 in Jim Crockett. I'm a part of, I think, Cult of Kayfabe, Solid Monster, the wrestling you grew up with, the Friendoverse. Like, there's probably 6 or 7 groups that I'm in, and different opinions about stuff. I was in All Elite's wrestling group, but they've had 2 shows, and it's constantly every week. It's like the same question 5 to 6 times from people, and it's just, I got so over it after about 3 weeks. I said, you know, this is done. I'm literally over this. I'm done. And I left the group. So when they start having shows again in October, I'll go back. Until then, I be damned. Current state of wrestling, though, it's just not that, it's not as fun as it used to be. But I will say, on the plus side, it's a lot easier to find wrestling to look at. Back in the day, you had to have cable. Excuse me. You had to have TBS to watch WCW on Saturdays. You had to have TBS to watch Clash of the Champions. You had to have TBS to watch wrestling on Sundays for WCW. So really, if you had TBS, you were able to watch WCW. As far as watching WWF, NBC, regular channel, and then Saturday's Wrestling Challenge, Wrestling Superstars, whatever it was called. It was out here, was in LA and all that. It was on Fox. So as long as you had NBC and Fox, which are standard channels, right? CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC, and I think UPN or whatever the hell it was, KTLA, I don't know. We had a lot of channels. Then you could watch WWF. To watch USWA, world class, or AWA, then you had to start looking at like WGN, ESPN, stuff like that. So you did have to have cable back in the day to watch all this stuff. And now, with the way the internet is, if you don't have cable, and as long as you have Wi-Fi, you are at least able to watch clips, reviews, matches, Daily Motion, YouTube, whatever else is out there. You can rewatch. There's a website that actually has, I'm not going to say the name of the website because I don't want it to get shut down, but there's a name of a website out there that has every show from the previous week. So if you watch it if you check out that website within the first week after a show appears, then you'll be able to check out shows from Ring of Honor, Impact, WWE, NXT, NXT UK, etc., 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 which I think is great. Currently, I have recording Raw, SmackDown every week, and I have recording New Japan. I don't really watch New Japan, but I will kind of catch up on stuff, G1 Climax and stuff like that. The A block and the B block and all that stuff. So it's really cool that if you don't have cable, you can still find out information. You can still find matches on the internet where you really couldn't do that before. You had to find someone to trade tapes with, someone who had cable. And how do you do that? You talk to strangers. And that's just scary as a kid. You don't just go talking to strangers trying to find matches from Terry Von Erich and Ric Flair. My mom had a friend who lived up in LA, and her friend's son used to watch wrestling as much as I did, but he watched NWA. So he was watching Kerry Von Erich, Ric Flair in '84. He was watching Dusty and Tully and Nikita and Magnum TA and Ron Garvin, and he was telling me all these stories about all these matches, and it would get me so pumped and so hyped that I would have to watch WCW NWA, which is eventually how I got into that, was I think because of him. I may have stumbled across it on my own too, but I think I don't remember watching wrestling for WCW NWA before talking to him. I just don't remember. So I kind of want to give him all the props for that. But yeah, I want to see more entertaining matches. I know in the last show I talked about what AEW needs to succeed, which is entertainment. They need to not just have great matches, because New Japan has great matches, and American people do not give a shit. Straight up. They want to see silliness. They want to see Lashley crash into the LED board with Braun Strowman. They want to see silly stuff, It's the stuff that goes viral. The stuff I grew up on, like the Honky Tonk Man and Rhythm and Blues, and the silliness, the Bushwhackers, silly, Coco Beware, silly, Hacksaw Jim Duggan with a 2x4, sticking out his tongue, giving the thumbs up and screaming USA. Other than that, he had 3 moves in the entire, in his matches, punches, body slam, and the 3-point stance clothesline. That was pretty much it. It was, he had more antics than he did wrestling moves as far as what's notable. And I think that's what's really going to be needed in order to kind of, get AEW over the top and help them take over WWE as the leading professional wrestling company in America. But that's not really happening enough now across the board in other companies. I did see a clip the other day of Tessa Blanchard and Jeremiah Crane, aka Solomon Crow, and she got tackled by him, and the week before or 2 weeks before, she speared another dude. So it was those are antics. Those are really cool things that need to happen, but nobody watches Impact. So if WWE had Becky Lynch spear somebody who's pretty serious, maybe not a Braun Strowman, but maybe if she were to spear somebody like a Baron Corbin, they have the Extreme Rules match coming up in just a few days. So you got Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch putting both their titles on the line against Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans. And it's kind of an intergender match, but basically, I think the rule is if you get pinned, you lose your title if you're Becky or Seth. So really, Baron and Lacey don't have anything to lose other than the match itself. And I think it's an Extreme Rules match too, so I'm not 100% sure, but whatever. The whole point is that WWE, to make that more memorable, will need antics. It can be a good match, cool, great. It's great to see Becky do this or see Seth do that, but you're going to need antics in the match. And I think that's maybe why they have it against Baron and against Lacey. And I actually do want to see some kind of antics more often. I just watched Raw from last week, and I got to tell you, as much as people were clamoring for it, and Paul Heyman's doing great, and Paul this and Paul that, because he's supposed to be taking over. The funny thing is, there was no date released by the company stating when Heyman and Bischoff are really going to be taking over. Just that they got hired on to do this job. But there's no specific date as to when they're taking over. So people are like, oh, look, Heyman's doing a great job already. I watched that Raw. It wasn't that great to me. They had started off kind of strong with Strowman crashing the LED board with Lashley. And they had the review of Strowman and Lashley the week before doing the tug of war, then the attack afterwards. You need stuff like that, to kind of keep a storyline going. So I can appreciate that for what it was. And they both had injuries. They had to get carted out. I would have liked to actually see that segment continue, but have Braun break the straps, get out of the ambulance, and push Lashley's ambulance over and say something like, I'm not done with you, or something like that. I think that would have been great for Braun, but and then maybe they suspend him or something like that, because I heard he has some injuries that he needs to heal, as well as Lashley. You had a segment in the back with AJ Styles and the club, and they're, he's chastising them, then they start chastising him, and then he eventually confronts Ricochet. He slaps Ricochet. Ricochet slaps him back. That was a cool little segment. I haven't watched the main event yet between the two of them, but because the two guys are so good at what they do, I'm sure the main event is going to be fine. It may not be, like the match they had a couple weeks ago. It was fine. It wasn't, great, but it was fine. Kind of like I was talking about with the Seth and AJ match from Money in the Bank. It wasn't great, but it was fine. Nothing to complain about. I'm not going to write home about it either. I'm not going to say, oh my God, everyone has to watch this. Maybe for, memory's sake, be like, oh yeah, I saw when AJ wrestled Seth for the first time in WWE. But other than that, like, the match wasn't really all that great. And so I'm hoping Ricochet and AJ can do that and make that better, but they're going to need antics, which is why the club is there to interfere, to do this, to do that. And hopefully Ricochet will find a tag team to help him. It kind of looks like maybe a little bit, if we're going to have kind of a redoing of what we did 3 years ago with AJ versus Cena. AJ had the club, Gallows and Anderson. Then Cena ended up using Enzo and Kaz. So I'm thinking maybe, I don't know if it'll be SummerSlam and they'll have a 6-man. I think if they were to do it, I don't know, they need to have AJ and Ricochet have, like, I guess the final blow off either at SummerSlam or whatever the pay-per-view event will be in September. And then Ricochet will need some other kind of tag team to work with him, which could be the War Raiders or Viking Warriors, whatever. I don't even know what the hell their name are. Eric and Ivar, Hanson and Rowe. He might need them. He might need, I don't know who else he could use. The New Day, maybe? I don't know. They're kind of in the thing with the Viking Raiders. The Revival, no, because they're working with Shane and Drew McIntyre. So, I mean, Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, maybe? Whoever Ricochet picks, it's got to be an exciting match that is going to have some antics. I don't remember anything from the Cena, Enzo Kaz versus Gallows Anderson and AJ Styles match from 3 years ago. I just know that it happened, and it happened to further a storyline because Enzo and Kaz had beef, I think, with Gallows and Anderson already, whatever it was. So you need some kind of something to further the storyline, make it entertaining, and have the match be fun as well. These aren't funny characters as far as AJ and Ricochet, but if they can do stuff that is funny. I remember one of the things that AJ said to Cena when he was wrestling him, I think it may have been it may have been the first match, Money in the Bank. And AJ said something about, this is the best you got? Shit. And they actually had to beep that out. But I remember that because I was like, that just seems like it seemed like a shoot. It seemed like a shoot for me to hear AJ Styles say, this is the best you guys got? Shit. You can't match me. And he beat Cena twice, which I thought was absolutely great that he was able to beat Cena twice. Great writing, I think, for that feud. I didn't really like when Cena beat AJ in the Royal Rumble, months later. out of nowhere. Like, it was kind of whack, but whatever. It is what it is. So yeah, got to have some entertainment there. Because if you're not going to have entertainment, people aren't going to want to tune in. It's not going to be memorable for them. You know, it could be the greatest match of all time, Savage and Steamboat, or Steamboat and Flair, like I said before, and everyone highly regards those matches as some of the greatest of all time, greatest in-ring work. But I don't think they're as memorable as other ones because, like I said before, the greatest TV shows of all time are not as memorable as the shows that are best marketed, you know, that have slogans and t-shirts and slogans on them. And, you know, what you're talking about, Willis, like people remember Different Strokes. They don't remember Dallas. They just don't, because Different Strokes, I'm sure, made tons more money because it was far more marketable. It's just what it was. The Cosby Show, I'm sure, made far more money because it was more marketable. You know, it was a lot funnier. People that I knew didn't watch Dallas. They didn't watch Dukes of Hazzard as much. It was a little too serious. But when you did watch Dukes of Hazzard, what'd you get? You got Roscoe P. Coltrane, and you got Boss Hogg, you know, to make it funny. And of course, Hot Ass Daisy Dukes. Whew. Oh, wow. So it has to be entertaining. You have to entertain people. And it's just the current state of wrestling is not entertaining enough. It's just not. It's easily accessible more so now than it was 30, 40 years ago, 20 years ago even. I mean, 20 years ago, we're talking, 1999? So you couldn't get stuff, but 10 years ago, you could start getting stuff online. 5 years ago, 4 years, you know, and then on and on and on. It just becomes easier. You know, MLW is a company I forgot to mention. I think they have shows on YouTube, full shows, like through their YouTube channel. So it's not even pirated or anything like that. So you don't have to feel guilty for watching it. But yeah, it's their actual channel. And I haven't watched. Little shout out to Jacob Fatu, who just won the championship for MLW the other day. A little personal connection to him. He, I think it was 2017. I went to a show. It was PCW, Pacific Coast Wrestling, I guess, or I don't know, whatever it was. And he was wrestling with some other dude for the tag team championship. They had the tag team championship, and he was wrestling MVP and somebody else. And I was yelling to the referee. I was losing my voice, and I was like, "Hey, ref, he's cheating." And Jacob turns around and says, "Shut your fat ass up." And I sat down as quickly as I possibly could to avoid Jacob Fatu beating me up, because I'm not a bitch, but I'm also not stupid. So I sat down very quickly, and then later realized that he can't make me sit down because he's not going to hurt me, because that's not cool, and I can sue him and the company. So I eventually stood up about 5 minutes later when I realized I was a man, not a mouse, and then the fun was had. I went through some shit last year, and a friend of mine saw Jacob Fatu at a show, and Jacob did a little video for me to show me his support, and I really, really, really appreciated that. Like, it broke me down. Like, I was in tears watching that because I felt so special to see that. I had to stop by and drive by, my buddy's work, and say hello to him. Like, it was so touching that a wrestler would do that for me, because he actually remembered me from that incident 2 years ago. So it was really cool, really cool. So props to MLW for putting the title on a quality dude, a real quality guy. And if they do shows like at MLW, the way that he was interacting with me at the PCW show, that's great. You know, one of my favorite heel moments, a couple of my favorite heel moments was Ted DiBiase. You know, he kicked everybody out of the pool, paid off the lifeguard or whatever, kicked everyone out of the pool, and he had the pool all to himself. You know, that was great heel work. A little side vignette. And then my most favorite Ted DiBiase, or really any heel moment, was when he had the little black kid Sean dribbling the basketball 15 times for $100. And DiBiase said, "You look like you could use $100." Oh my God. That's so funny. Look like you could use $100. That's great. That's absolutely great. But when the kid got to 14, DiBiase kicked the ball away, man. He kicked the ball, and the kid didn't get the money. As far as I know, he didn't really get the money. And he sent the little kid packing and sent him back to his mom, sucking his thumb. And I was like, that is so, like, at the time, that's really mean, right? But looking back, it is my favorite heel moment. And the only person I can see in AEW that can compete with that level of heel is MJF, whose name Malcolm Maxwell Jacob Friedman. That's his name. And he wears a scarf and he's real sassy. And he said something a couple weeks ago, I think at Fyter Fest, where he said, he was talking about video games. He's like, yeah, video game, making the whole crowd chant. And he said, I used to love video games until I wasn't a virgin anymore. Ouch. And the camera pans over to this one guy in the audience who's just staring at him like, ow. So funny. But MJF has the ability, in my opinion, to be that level of heel like DiBiase, to get remembered. You know, that DiBiase thing was probably 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago. That's crazy. I still remember it because I remember it for one, and then two, it's on the internet because it's classic. The same thing with the DiBiase pool thing, you know, the basketball in the pool. Those are classic heel moments, things that people are going to need to remember because you don't remember DiBiase matches. You just don't. You remember maybe certain things that DiBiase would do, like when he would try to hit the back elbow from the second rope and he would miss and he would flip back over on his neck and shoulders, and then, you know, or if he would get suplexed and he would, you know, pound his legs into the canvas just so that he was hurt. Like, it was silly, but it's things that you remember, you know, the way he would say money, money, money and rub his fingers together, his thumb and his pointer and middle finger together to symbolize money. You know, I remember him doing that, I think in the 91, 92, 93 Rumble, one of those. He was doing it with Savage or somebody like that, which was so interesting because of the feud they had during WrestleMania 4 and SummerSlam 88. It's just really interesting. But anyway, heel stuff. MJF is going to need to do some heel stuff. I don't know who else they really have that's going to do heel stuff other than maybe Moxley and Jericho. But if you have guys that are doing great heel stuff, I mean, you have the Young Bucks kind of doing their own videos in the back, and I think that's great. They've had some really funny stuff as they were kind of developing the company and everything. So I think that's what they need to do in order to kind of elevate the status of wrestling right now. The current state it's a little boring. WWE kind of leads the charge with how boring it is. AEW hasn't had shows yet. They've had two shows, but I mean, as far as their weekly shows, they haven't had that yet. Not enough people watch Impact. Ring of Honor had not enough people at their show recently. New Japan is great, but no one watches because it's in another country and you may not have that cable channel. I think I named all the companies that people would actually watch. And so if New Japan wants to start, being a little more silly, I think people will give a shit more, which is unfortunate because to see guys like Tanahashi and Ibushi and some of those guys, they're great wrestlers and they deserve our attention. I hadn't seen Ibushi for the first time. I'd heard the name, but hadn't seen him, I think, except for maybe some highlights. And then the match against Cedric at the Cruiserweight Classic a few years ago. That's really unfortunate because he does great matches. Now I have seen more, him and Kenny Omega being the Golden Elite and stuff, or the Golden Lovers, whatever it was, and I think that's great. But they're gonna need more than that if they want to elevate the current status of wrestling across the globe, not just in Japan, because that works for Japan, but it's got to work over here in the States as well. People got to be entertained. They're doing a little bit, but I don't think it's enough. WWE, I just saw online today that people didn't enjoy tonight's Raw. So if people loved the week before but didn't like tonight, Vince did tonight and Heyman did last week, but there's no evidence of either. So how do you know who's responsible for what? You don't. You're kind of just making guesses at this point. And if the wrestling and the shows are inconsistent and it's too many long segments, like I heard SmackDown last week or a couple weeks ago, didn't have a match like the first hour or something like that. Or maybe it was Raw. I think it was Raw like a couple weeks ago. Only had like 5 minutes of wrestling in the first hour. Like that's bad. People come to a wrestling show to see wrestling. It's 3 hours, 3 hours straight. Boom, 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 boom. In and out. You're done. You know? And you don't have that much wrestling in the first hour, then what the hell are people doing? They're just watching you cut promos in a ring? I didn't come here for that shit. I've been to Lucha Underground shows. They did all that promo shit. I know it's recorded, so it's different, but all that promo shit in the back, they didn't make us watch that shit. We have to watch the show to watch the promo shit, and the vignettes and stuff. If you're going to a Lucha Underground recording, you're watching the actual matches in the ring. And that shit was memorable because Pentagon wrestled like 3 women, the Black Triad, Lotus Triad, which I guess had Kairi Sane and Io Shirai in it before they went to NXT and main roster, which was really cool. I got to see Sexy Star wrestle John Morrison or Johnny Mundo, or what used to be known as, I can't say his name, it's his sexist Spanish version of it. But yeah, seeing that, I would have loved to see Ricochet and Johnny Mundo from first season, because that would have been great, or excuse me, Prince Puma. But that would have been great too. But they also had, what was the one? Not Chris Angel, that's the magician dude. But what's the guy? Angelico, where he jumped off of the top of like the Lucha Temple, basically. Like there's like a ramp or whatever in there. It's probably about 15 to 20 feet up in the air, and he came flying off of there and dove off and jumped on somebody all the way down in the ring, and I was really impressed. I was really impressed. Those are the kind of moments that are entertaining enough to make people want to continue to tune in week after week after week. Now, unfortunately, it didn't work because Lucha is on some random channel and not everyone has it. I don't even know the name of the damn channel. I think I had it, but by the time I got it, Lucha wasn't on anymore. So I never ended up recording it, but I had to end up downloading it. But yeah, I don't even know the name of the channel. I keep wanting to say Aztec, but I don't think that's it. I have no idea. I think Aztec is part of the Lucha show. Anyway, but the whole thing needs more entertainment, needs to be funny, needs to be fun, needs to have solid matches. And of course, not every match is going to be solid, not every match is going to be great, but if you have a product overall that is really pushing the idea of fun and excitement in the ring and out of the ring, and crashing through barricades and throwing chairs and sneak attacks from managers and all kinds of stuff like that, that's going to get over. It's going to get over. I loved watching Dolph Ziggler and The Miz a few years back when what's her name would always get Maurice would always get involved and spray Dolph with the spray. Like, I don't remember anything else from the matches except for that one time where him and Miz and Dolph wrestled for something. I can't remember what it was, but it was reminiscent of CM Punk's match in MMA, and they did the exact same moves in the first part of the match to try to mimic that, just to make fun of him, which I thought was a little classless, but it was kind of funny nonetheless. But that was funny, and that was memorable. And the spraying of whatever it was, hairspray, perfume in Dolph Ziggler's eyes. And Dolph could not get the IC title, and Miz kept retaining. And that was the most memorable parts. But we need that to continue in order to elevate the status and the state and the mood of the current state of wrestling. You need that. And if you don't got it, people aren't going to tune in. But you can tune in to me tomorrow again. I'm at KJ from OC on Facebook. I'm at KJ from OC on Instagram. And I'm at KJ from OC on Twitter. and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.